We're going to take you back to the election now in our regular Friday panel. Joining me here, LBC's Iain Dale, Polly Mackenzie, former advisor to Nick Clegg, and Paul Mason, Corbyn supporter and journalist. Very nice to see you all. Who do you think, a quick run through, who do you think won that debate? Were there winners and losers for you, Paul? And I'm going to say this now, you've been very good at not being too tribal up to this point.
There's only 5 days to go, though, so
yeah,
don't hold
I have great hopes for honesty.
Look, I think what was wrong with that debate is that at this stage in the game, we need expert people quizzing both sides. I was actually who won there was the politicians, because they weren't expertly quizzed. Neither of them was pushed to the limits of where their positions are, because the audience, you know, I think we're coming from an emotional position, which is where many voters come from, but actually on things like nuclear, which is like tonight, this is the issue that Labour in spin doctors want to avoid. I want to hit it head on. The position is clear. The newness of, for example, no first use is incredibly new and innovative for the British nuclear military establishment, and yet nobody in the audience seemed to pick it up. So I'm concerned that the quality of democracy we're going to get at the end of this election is one where, you know, two completely different politicians have really failed to be quizzed expertly in the way that would have helped.
It's very brave, isn't it? So the audience asked the wrong questions.
When they are quizzed expertly by expert interviewers, Corbyn supporters go on Twitter and troll them and call them Zionists for asking hard questions.
Well, obviously that is wrong, but the point I'm trying to make is that we need to know now what is the cap. It was said again and again, for example, what is the cap on how much savings you lose from the dementia tax?
Okay.
We don't know.
Well, we're not going to get that one. Polly, let me come to you. What did you feel? I mean, this was also about the warmth that an audience has for whoever's on that stage.
Yeah,
who won that?
I think Theresa May was better than she's been, which is, you know, a bit of a shift. Actually, she's had a bit of a wobble for the last 10 days, and it felt like she was back on track, as good as she could be. And I think I disagree with Paul. I think you do have to have different phases. You have, you know, your Andrew Neil's taking people to pieces on the experts, but you also do have to see if people can emote and can relate to human beings. And actually, both of them were sort of better than you would have expected on that.
I'll tell you what, politicians get found out when they're asked questions by real people. I see that every day on my radio show. It's the real voters, when they ask the questions, the politicians are sometimes like gulping goldfishes, and we saw that to an extent tonight with Jeremy Corbyn. This was an important event. It had the highest audience, I would imagine, of any interview programme so far, and I'm afraid, Paul, Jeremy Corbyn was found out tonight. Anyone watching that with his remarks on terrorism, where he could not bring himself to condemn the IRA...
He condemned him in...
No, he didn't. He used
condemned all terrorist violence in IRA.
I don't want to run...
So,
okay.
on nuclear defence, this man is not fit to run...
I don't want to run the debate or any BBC debate, but what I do want to say is, at the end of a week where we've seen extraordinary diversity of polls in a way that we haven't for, you know, 2 years or whatever, where would you put your numbers now? If I come to you for maths, and I know you do this anyway as a hobby, but where would you put? You're going for a Tory majority still?
Yes,
of
I
what?
am. I think that Theresa May has had a bad week. Let no one deny that. But tonight she came out fighting, and I think anybody who watched that, any floating voter who watched that, will have been more impressed by Theresa May than they probably thought they would be. Now, in terms of numbers, at the start of this campaign, I predicted a Tory majority of 74. Then I went through all of the constituencies, and on the basis of the high opinion poll lead, and came out with a majority of 130. I think that has rode back now. I don't think it'll be that high, but I still expect a relative Conservative landslide.
Polly, I'm about 100, you're saying then? Or
I think it could be 80 to 100.
I mean, I think Iain's probably better at the detailed numbers than me, but yeah, the Conservatives are going to win this, 50, 75, whatever it is. But what's depressing for me is neither Theresa May nor Jeremy Corbyn is particularly strong. They've both got big areas of weakness.
Stronger than Tim Farron.
Well, Nick Clegg is worried about his seat tonight, isn't that right? I mean, some of these polls and modelling has got Sheffield Hallam as a toss.
Everybody said Sheffield Hallam was going to be lost, and as it happened, it was returned with a substantial majority. So, you know,
is it conceivable that the Lib Dems could go backwards this time?
Elections, anything is conceivable, and you know, then people pledge to eat their hats and look like idiots, or run down streets naked, and I just,
thank you
of course, anything is plausible.
My promise in 2010.
All I can do is believe the range of polls, and I think the range of polls point to the maximum Theresa May is going to get is 10 extra seats, I would have thought.
Seriously?
Yes, absolutely.
Seriously?
Yeah. And
I hope there's money on this
yeah.
afterwards.
Well,
Paul, do you think, are they,
No,
in
but
Corbyn
let me
HQ, but can I just ask you, are they preparing now for the possibility of a hung parliament or a win?
They're preparing for the possibility of a win. They're preparing for the possibility of a hung parliament. That's why you've seen Starmer out talking about the Northern Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish governments having a part in Brexit. You've seen that...
And fair to say they weren't at the beginning of this, right?
No, absolutely not, because you go back, I believe, the polls. The ranges from a small Tory majority through to a hung parliament, through to a minority Labour government.
Most of the polls are still 10 to 12 points ahead, aren't they?
Exactly.
No, some aren't.
I spent the whole of the 2015 election campaign preparing for a hung parliament, wishing it's going to happen doesn't actually make it happen.
No, I'm believing the polls. But what I will say is...
You believe in the polls you want to believe. You're not believing the majority of the polls.
What I will say is, what Labour are very concerned about is the turnout. On a high turnout of young people, Labour is in a very good position.
And you have to get young people out.
Well, if
young
any of them
people
are
who
listening,
actually put their money where their mouth is.
If they don't vote Labour, it means £9,000 a year on your university fees from September.
He's also guaranteed that students who've already gone through university are going to have their money refunded.
Brilliant.
I mean, fantasy politics.
Let me ask you something about this, because
support the young people of this country.
This feels like a personality race, doesn't it? And weirdly, they've gone like that. The more people have seen of Jeremy Corbyn, it seems, the more they've warmed, and the more they've seen Theresa May, the less they've warmed.
Well, I think you saw a turning point tonight. I genuinely believe that you do.
She was an automaton.
Well, you said earlier on the Daily Politics you thought that she was unwell, which I thought was an absolutely disgraceful thing to say. I think you should apologise for it, because it's out of the Trump playbook. That's what it is.
Your side is calling my leader a terrorist. I won't be apologising for
No, we haven't called him a terrorist. We've questioned his terrorist sympathies.
Where's she been all week?
Would you like to apologise for that? Would you like to apologise? Out of the Trump playbook, you should be...
She's terrified of debating, and it's legitimate to ask, where is she?
It's not OK to question her health. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Where is she?
Do you think any of this cuts through?
Well, yeah, some of it does. But reinforcing what we heard some Vox Pop say earlier, that they all still feel the same, even though actually the policies are incredibly divergent in this election in a way that they haven't been recently. But you still get that sense that all the politicians are kind of mediocre.
Who do you think's played dirty?
Oh, everybody.
Do you?
What does that matter? The future of the country is at stake. The other side...
So it's fine to play dirty.
The other side is actually saying that Labour and the millions of people who support it are in some way tainted by terrorism.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because
Let's hear it.
Jeremy Corbyn,
what you are doing is digging the grave of consensus politics in this country.
He's a friend
you
of
are digging the grave of consensus
politics
in this country. Labour supports the rule of law, anti-terror, and
I'm so sorry. We need to get to
Talk
Steve
to
Smith.
Diane
He's
Abbott
on his
about
bus.
that.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
What's this racism about Diana? Why do you hate
Right.
black home secretary?
We need to go on.
Oh, here we go.
Finally.
Why do you keep
Paul, shh. We'll come back to Diane Abbott next week. Shush. Right, imagine a scene. A snap election is called. The Newsnight office gathers to discuss.